Hi everyone, my name's Dave. Welcome to the first video on New Zealand Outdoor Blades. I'm just a pretty average knife enthusiast. And today I just want to have a really quick talk about a historical perspective on New Zealand Outdoor Blades. And I'm talking more about prior to 1970. So back in the 50s and 60s. And in this country, what did New Zealand outdoorsmen actually carry when they're in the bush? From an economic perspective, your average person that was hunting in New Zealand at that period, then and probably now as well, didn't have a lot of money. They were typically relatively young people, back then mainly young men, and they would spend most of their money on imported rifles and rifle scopes rather than on a knife. So the knives that they took were typically relatively cheap. What sort of knives would they be carrying back in the 1960s? Well, if you had the money, they might have had an imported American knife such as a Buck or something like that, or a nice German Bowie knife or something like that. But truth is, imports were relatively hard to come across back then, and also very expensive, so most people didn't. What did they carry? Is they actually just carried a basic butcher's knife like this, and this is a sheep skinning knife. I've also got a second one here, and these were very common back in the day in New Zealand. Every farm in the country had one of these. They were used for killing and butchering sheep. Not the most ideal hunting knife, but certainly effective at skinning and can be used for any manner of meat processing. Typically they're carried in a sheath like this, which had its a steel with it as well. These were typically made in New Zealand. Some of them might have been made in the UK, but normally made in New Zealand out of a high carbon steel. Relatively cheap and effective, so your hunter back then wasn't going to go and spend a lot of money on a knife when this was available in pretty much every household. The other type of knife that they used to use, and I'm particularly talking about pig hunters here who literally stab pigs with a knife, would be a military knife, and this one was gifted to me by a family friend and was used back in the 1960s for hunting, primarily sticking pigs. And it's an old Lee Enfield bayonet that has had the length shortened to about 10 or 12 inches here, and this was what some of your pig hunters who hunt with dogs would use for sticking pigs. Again, an economical reality of the fact that these were available relatively cheaply, whereas imported knives were more expensive. So yeah, just keen to hear what you think. Have a good day.